Close your eyes and truly imagine it. Not as a fan watching from the stands, but as the architect of your own destiny. For years, you have been the master planner, the visionary. You didn't just join a fight. You built a fortress of ambition, brick by brick, with your own sweat and will. You gathered an army, not of followers, but of believers, united under a banner of revolution. You've weathered wars, endured pain, and made sacrifices that would break lesser men, all for the sake of a singular, glorious vision. You stand on the mountain peak, the wind of triumph at your back, looking down at a kingdom that bears your name, your identity, your very soul. You believe your legacy is unshakable, etched not in stone, but in the annals of history itself. Then, without a whisper of warning, the mountain itself betrays you. The foundation doesn't just crack, it vaporizes. The betrayal doesn't come from a rival at the gates, but from the trusted hands within your own walls. The brothers you broke bread with, the soldiers you stood shoulder to shoulder with in the trenches, turn on you with a chilling, surgical precision. It's not a crime of passion, but a calculated execution. In the span of a single heartbeat, the crown is ripped from your head, the scepter shattered, and your kingdom collapses inward, consuming itself in the fire of treachery. You are left not just defeated, but hollowed out. The roar of the crowd morphs into a cacophony of mockery, the bright lights become interrogators' lamps, and the canvas you once ruled now feels like a cold, stone slab upon which your legacy is being publicly autopsied. This is more than a loss, it is an erasure. This was the cataclysmic reality that swallowed Seth, the visionary, Rollins whole. The night in Perth began draped in the illusion of triumph. He had just emerged from a brutal war against Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel, a victory carved from pain and sheer, stubborn pride. He stood in that ring, a champion who had proven his mettle once again, believing the faction he built, the vision, was an unbreakable chain of loyalty. But power is a corrosive agent, and the chain had been quietly rusting from within. The architects of this palace coup were the very men he had elevated. Braun Breaker, a tempest of raw ambition, no longer willing to be patient in the shadow of a king he perceived as growing arrogant. Bronson Reed, a force of nature, tired of being the earthquake that another man took credit for. And pulling the strings in the shadows, the grand strategist of chaos himself, Paul Heyman, who saw a dynasty growing stagnant and decided to irrigate it with the blood of its founder. The moment of betrayal was a masterpiece of narrative cruelty. As Rollins basked in the adulation, his arms raised not in arrogance, but in shared victory with his people, the illusion was shattered. Breaker's spear was not merely a physical attack, it was a symbolic regicide, a violent revocation of loyalty. Before the physical shock could even register, Bronson Reed ascended to the heavens and descended as a falling star of annihilation, his tsunami splash serving as the final, crushing period at the end of Rollins' sentence. And then, Paul Heyman, the master of ceremonies for this funeral, presided over the burial, raising the hands of the betrayers and symbolically chiseling Rollins' name off the monument he himself had built. Backstage, the true story unfolded in hushed, urgent tones. This was not a rash decision, it was a boardroom takeover. Rollins' unwavering self-belief, once his greatest strength, had been twisted into a narrative of unbearable ego. His claims of solitary greatness, coupled with the visible vulnerability of a nagging shoulder injury, painted a picture of a leader who was no longer an asset, but the primary liability. Heyman, the eternal puppet master, simply identified the frayed threads of loyalty and gave them a sharp, decisive pull. In the haunting silence that followed the storm, as social media became a digital coliseum of shock and speculation, a single, profound question echoed in the mind of every witness: what is the fate of a king with no kingdom? Does he wander the ruins of his former glory, a ghost of what he once was? Or does he gather the scattered, smoking embers of his defeat and forge a new, more terrifying crown from the ashes? Does destruction beget oblivion, or does it offer the freedom for a more monstrous rebirth? It was this very question that drew the attention of another monarch, one who rules from a different throne but understands the language of power and ruin. This set the stage for a confrontation that was less a meeting and more a seismic event in the making. Far from the roaring crowds, in the sterile, shadow-draped arteries of the arena, two forces of nature converged. Seth Rollins moved through the hallway like a specter of his former self. His body was wrapped in the physical evidence of his downfall, but his eyes, his eyes told the real story. They were a stormy sea of pain, humiliation, and a rage so cold it was beginning to freeze over. Every step was heavy, laden with the weight of a future he could no longer see. And then, from the opposite direction, emerged his mirror and his antithesis, Roman Reigns. He arrived not with the pomp of the tribal chief, but with the unnerving quiet of a man who is the empire. There was no entourage, no wise man to counsel him, just the sheer, gravitational force of his presence. The air between them became thick and electric, charged with the ghosts of the shield, the echoes of past wars, and a mutual, terrifying understanding of what it means to fall from the top and claw your way back. The words they exchanged were not mere dialogue, they were the careful, probing moves of a high-stakes chess match played in the dark. You were left exposed. Cut loose, Roman began, his voice a low, tectonic rumble that seemed to vibrate in the very floor. That was no accident. It was a strategy. Rollins met his gaze, the shock having already given way to a grim, acquired clarity. I know that now, he replied, the words laced with the acid of hindsight. Your faction turned, Roman stated, not to rub salt in the wound, but to state a fact as cold and hard as diamond. They decided their future was brighter without you in the picture. A bitter, twisted smile played on Rollins' lips, a defense mechanism honed over years of betrayal. It's what people do, he retorted, his voice steady. They abandon what they fear they can't control. Roman advanced, closing the distance, his gaze becoming an X-ray seeing through to the crumbling foundation. I know what they feared in you, Seth, he said, his tone dropping into a confidential register. And I know the ambition they now harbor. He let the silence stretch, a canvas for Rollins to paint his own fears upon, before asking the pivotal question, and you, Roman? Where does the great tribal chief stand in all this? A ghost of a smile touched Roman's lips. Where I have always stood. At the summit, he declared, the statement devoid of boastfulness, filled only with the weight of fact. But I possess a vision others lack. I see potential where they see only a broken man. I recognize the immense value that resides in someone who has been shattered, because those are the individuals who truly understand the cost of rising again. This was not a lifeline thrown out of compassion. It was a business proposition from a cosmic power broker. Rollins, whose entire career has been built on seeing the angles, immediately sensed the hook within the offer. You want something, he countered, his voice sharpening. Let's not pretend this is a social call. You didn't come here just to talk. Roman's voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, the sound of destiny being offered with one hand and a contract written in blood in the other. I want alignment. I seek a new, greater purpose. You have the capacity to stand beside me, not behind me. But understand this, Seth, nothing I offer comes without a significant price. It was here that the last vestige of the visionary king emerged, a final, defiant stand from the ruins. Then understand this, Rollins fired back, his jaw tight with pride. I will not be anyone's pawn. Not again. A slow, deliberate nod from Roman, a flicker of what might have been respect in his eyes. Good, he affirmed, the word carrying a surprising weight. I never saw you as one. And with that, the tribal chief turned, his silhouette melting back into the shadows from whence he came. He left Seth Rollins standing alone, bathed in the dim, unforgiving light, a figure who had lost everything, yet in whose eyes now flickered not just the embers of his old fire, but the dangerous, unpredictable flames of a phoenix forged in betrayal. This was more than a conversation. It was the first, quiet tremor of a psychological war that promises to fracture the very landscape of WWE. The question now hanging in the air is as terrifying as it is thrilling. Is Roman Reigns the savior offering a path to redemption, or is he the final, brilliant predator offering a gilded cage? Is this Seth Rollins' path to salvation, or his final, glorious damnation? The chessboard is set. The pieces are moving. The story has only just begun, and its ending will be written in the fire of their collision. This isn't just a story, it's your argument to make. The spectacle we witness on screen is only half the battle. The true heart of this saga beats in the passion of the WWE Universe. The direction of this epic, the twists it takes, and the legacy it forges are not predetermined. They are shaped in the crucible of your debate, fueled by your theories, and given life by your unwavering investment. We are not just spectators at this crossroads, we are the witnesses whose collective voice becomes part of its history. So now, we turn the narrative over to you. The floor is yours. The proposition. Is Roman Reigns' offer a genuine alliance, a recognizing of a kindred spirit in the ashes? Or is this the most sophisticated trap ever laid, a promise of power designed to finally extinguish the last ember of Seth Rollins' independence? The crossroads. Should Seth Rollins clasp the hand of his former brother, a man who understands power like no other, even if it means selling a piece of his soul? Or must he embrace the desolate path of the lone wolf, vowing to rebuild his empire from the ground up, trusting no one and nothing but his own scarred hands? The wild cards. What is the endgame for the mastermind, Paul Heyman? Did he merely trade one king for two younger ones, or is he playing a deeper, more terrifying game that even Reigns and Rollins cannot yet see? And how will the new regime of Breakker and Reed react when they learn the king they dethroned may be consorting with a god? This is your call to action. The speculation is the pre-show. Your voice is the main event. Join the revolution of analysis. Subscribe to our channel for daily breakdowns, exclusive insider perspectives, and deep dives into the evolving saga of Rollins and Reigns. Hit that like button if you believe this is the defining storyline of a generation. But most importantly, we need your voice. Drop your ultimate predictions in the comments below. Tell us who you believe holds the real power. Map out the epic confrontation you see on the horizon. Will they clash at WrestleMania? Will their alliance burn the company to the ground? The most compelling, creative, and passionate theories will be featured in our next video. Don't just watch history unfold from the sidelines. Step into the arena of ideas and help shape it. The future of WWE is being written in this very moment, and your opinion is the ink. What happens next is, quite literally, up to you.